This committee of the whole meeting of April the 7th is called to order. I'd like to introduce Carrie Wall, the introduction updates from as a community health facilitator for East Kootenay and Kootenay boundary. Sorry, apologies, long weekend. Can I have a motion to adopt the agenda of the committee of the whole meeting of April 7th? All in favor? So carried. Now moving right back again. We have Carrie Wall as the community health facilitator for East Kootenay and Kootenay boundary, and we'd like the council to receive a presentation from Carrie Wall of Interior Health. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Mayor Conrad. Thank you, Council. I appreciate being here today to present to Grand Forks. I haven't met the new council yet. I presented to the old council. Thank you. I'm going to give you an update today about the Healthy Communities Initiative and tell you what kind of things I do, what kind of things I have done with the city of Grand Forks, and pose questions about what we might do in the future. And I just mostly wanted to introduce myself, talk to you about the work that I do. So a bit about me, I live in Fernie. I'm based out of the Fernie Health Unit, but I cover the territory of IH East, which is basically the East and West Kootenays and extends out here to Grand Forks. And I travel around a lot. I work with municipalities. I do healthy public policy. So basically, I help bring health expertise, a health lens, health eyes towards municipal planning. I work with municipalities all over the Kootenays. Interior Health is committed to collaborate with municipalities to create policies and environments that support good health. Although most of the work Interior Health does is on the sick care end of things, looking after sick people in the healthcare end, we do some preventative work, and that's where I come in and the Healthy Communities Initiative, helping to keep healthy people healthy for longer. We're very interested in supporting the kind of work that local governments do because local governments are all about creating healthy places for healthy citizens to thrive. It makes a lot of sense to do work at this end of the spectrum, at the let's make sure got one pending with Creston and Golden and Castlegar as well. So some of the things local government does that helps improve community health, I'm sure you've already thought of many, but recreation planning and recreation policies are huge. Having walkability, trails, access for people to get around on their own steam, that increases physical activity levels, which increases health a lot. Anything to do with agricultural planning or food policies, social planning, housing, affordable housing, poverty strategies, bylaws for smoke-free spaces like I've got on this list. That's the sort of thing that communities and I have been working on all around the region. I've been doing some poverty reduction planning with the city of Nelson and the city of Cranbrook. Did a very exciting assessment last year with the city of Nelson, a food security assessment, to determine where can we put in more community gardens? How are our community gardens being used? What is the need? What is the demand? And I was involved in the advisory committee for that, which was a really great project. The city of Golden, the city of Trail consulted with me about recreation planning for the future, 10-year planning ahead. What kind of needs do you see? What kind of gaps are we, do you see? Are we missing anything? Let's partner together to plan for this kind of stuff. I helped Golden with their vital signs report, also bringing them some health information and health data and a health lens to the whole planning. So there's so many different options of things that we could do together if we wanted to move forward. So we have to offer myself. I'm a dedicated community health facilitator working exclusively with local governments. It's my job to talk to you guys. That's what I do 5 days a week. I've got a phone number where I'm easily reached and an email address. I know sometimes interior health can seem like a very large, monolithic institution. Who do I talk to? Who did I talk to last time? But that's not how I work. I get calls all the time from counselors. Hey, I want to talk to you about this thing, or can we meet for coffee? And that's my job. So I'm very happy to consult on anything, any questions you have or ideas you have. As well, there's a lot of other teams behind me. I've got access to the Healthy Built Environment team, the medical health officers, the community nutritionists, tobacco reduction coordinators, and more. So although I'm a point of contact, we've got other area expertise I can bring. External supports that we've got. BC Healthy Community Society works with Plan H, and basically through the Ministry of Health. The City of Grand Forks applied last year for a $5,000 grant from the Plan H BC Healthy Communities Capacity Building Grants to put towards the vital sign planning, and that application I helped with, and it was successful and received. So that's great. There's going to be more Plan H money announced coming up this year, but I'm not sure when. They haven't said when, but we were thinking it would be sometime this spring, just before the summer. So I'm not sure, but as soon as I know anything about any possible funding, I let all the communities I work with know. And of course, the Healthy Families BC has other resources. They put together last year a whole series of community health profiles, and I brought a bunch of them today for Grand Forks. These came out last year. They're 14-page documents all about health data for the city of Grand Forks. And I'm happy to leave these with everybody and pass them around. So that came from the Ministry of Health also. So I can help with things like that. Plan H also put out these really great full color documents. Some of you might have seen these, but I can leave them as well. They have this, how do local governments improve health and community well-being, which is a great pamphlet. Plan H stuff, that the brand Plan H, planh.ca, is specifically for local governments in BC. It's for staff, councillors, mayors, in towns and communities all across the province to think about community planning from a health lens. So they also have this one, healthy eating and food security. If you're interested, I can read these documents. And that's all I have to say, but if you have any questions, I'd be happy to hear them. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions or discussion from council? Councilor Hammond.
I'm just curious, will that PowerPoint be available that you could email to the councillors?
Yes, absolutely. I left it with staff and they have it.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from council? Councilor Ross.
Thank you. What an amazing delivery. Thank you. That's great. And I am really interested if you could please leave those documents. How do you make people eat in a more healthy way? Because I think food is medicine. And, we have the knowledge. It's sort of general. So, how do we, because we live in a breadbasket here.
Right.
And I'm just wondering do you have an experience with that? Is there an education program that we can actually ramp up?
I don't
You talk
know.
about local food, it's in your, your
Right.
first slide.
Yes. I personally don't know of any education programs, although the community nutritionist who works in this area, she's my colleague Tara Stark, she knows more. That's her job to know about nutrition. She works out of the office in Nelson. But I would say that it seems like the easy way to get people to eat healthier from a municipal planning level is to make it easier for food to be accessible. If you had a community food charter, if you do have farmers market, I know there's a community garden happening behind the aquatic center, which is really exciting. The more you can talk as a city about how important you think it is, we can help with some marketing or education ideas, I know that, and make it something that gets talked about, that's visible, that's accessible, that's easy, and more people will eat healthy. But it is complex, because I know there's a lot of personal lifestyle questions, psychology, childhood experiences that all go into that.
Councilor Hammond.
In Trail, I'm not sure if it was last year or the year before, they did a pilot project, and I'm just wondering if you're familiar with it, how it went, where they had the businesses downtown put out planter boxes,
Right.
and so they had basically community gardens spread out throughout the entire city core.
Right.
So anybody could go by at any time and take whatever they wanted out of
Yes.
the veggie gardens. Interesting to find out how that went. Was it maintained and looked after?
I think it was called Incredible Trail, wasn't it? Like Edible Trail, Incredible Trail. And I haven't spoken to them about it, but I've been following that on Facebook, and I'm very curious about it because that Incredible Trail has a Facebook page.
Okay.
So I'm really wondering. I think they're doing it again this year.
Yeah.
But I think that's a great question, and that's another thing that municipalities can do. I know the city of Kamloops has extensive public produce space just in front of their city hall. Like they grow stuff and people can come and take it. It's neat to show that the city thinks it's important when you do that yourself on your own property.
Yeah. That's cool. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from council? Any questions from the gallery? Okay.
Motion to receive.
Yes, do I have a motion to receive the presentation from Terry Wall? Councilor Wershagen, Councilor Thompson, all in favor? So carried. Thank you, Ms. Wall. Up next, we have Cindy Crane as the Acute Health Services Manager for Grand Forks. Welcome, Ms. Crane.
Thank you, Mayor Conrad and Council. Really nice to be here again with Carrie, my colleague. So my name is Cindy Crane, and I am the site manager here in Grand Forks at the acute hospital, which also we have our residential facility where we do and others. So I'm just here to give you an IHA update, just to let you know a little bit about how we're doing. So I'll just get my clicker here. So this is actually a really nice pictorial. One thing that always is incredible to me is the annual budget of Interior Health is actually 1.9 billion. And we do have a lot of programs that are not only just a hospital based, but residential, community care, mental health. We have some of our environmental, and then as Carrie was talking about, our health promotion activities. So this just gives you a really nice picture of all the different things that we do and how we are allied with things like volunteers, like almost 5,000 volunteers work within our programs here, certainly. So it's just to give you an idea. We have an organizational structure that does divide some of our services, and just so that you know some of the contacts in case you are wanting to ask questions, I am the community liaison for Grand Forks, Midway, also Greenwood and Rock Creek. So I am the community liaison as well as the site manager. Bridget McDonough, her office is in Nelson, but she has all three acute hospitals, Nelson Trail and Grand Forks here in the Boundary and Kootenay Boundary area. Cheryl Whittleton, she may have presented here to Grand Forks Council before. She has all of the community programs in the Kootenay Boundary. Cindy Kozak Campbell is director of and administrator of all the residential care facilities in Kootenay Boundary, and then you have met Carrie Wall. So that's just an outline of the different individuals within our program. So this slide sort of speaks to something that all of us at some point as we age will end up often with one chronic disease. And it gives a pictorial of how we compare here in Grand Forks to IH and also to British Columbia. And when I did this presentation last time, again, these stats have been updated, it's 1 year newer, but you can see that depression and anxiety, Grand Forks is a little bit higher. And you can see how we compare on some of the other things like asthma, COPD, dementia, and heart failure. So one thing that I did sort of look into after looking at this slide is often the depression and anxiety shows up because people with chronic disease do experience that as well as another chronic disease. So I don't think it should alarm you, but it is interesting that it is often accompanying yet another chronic disease. This gives you another idea about what our population projection is and where our bulge is, which really here in Grand Forks, because we are primarily a retirement community, our bulge is really in that roughly sort of 50 to 70 year age. So this is just a pictorial to show you where we're at with our demographics. And as Carrie was speaking, really our Ministry of Health is really trying to push us from a reactive type of healthcare system to a proactive. And certainly all of the work that Carrie and others do in the community with prevention and health promotion is really important to keeping people out of acute hospitals such as we have here in Grand Forks and elsewhere. So a few new programs that have been piloted over the last year and a half really are addressing some of the chronic disease. And I'm just going to speak briefly about two of them. One of them is Breathe Well, that is actually based in Trail currently, and then what our surveillance nurses do. So Breathe Well has many different programs, and when I was director in Penticton, there was a program there as well. And what Breathe Well is about is actually addressing the chronic long-term respiratory condition called chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. So this is people that often are on oxygen, have a lot of difficulty breathing just on a normal basis. And this is a 10-week program that they attend to help them cope and stay longer at home and not be hospitalized. We've only had 3 people from Grand Forks attend the program in Trail to date. But again, we've had very positive responses to it, and I think this will continue to grow for those that can travel to Trail. And you can see the cost of patients that are in the Breathe Well program. It shows that they can stay home. It's only $26 per day versus something more expensive, such as an emergency visit or hospitalization. And that's just a quote from one of the patients there. Another interesting program that's only been piloted for the last year is a surveillance nurse program. Again, this is for the more senior individuals that want to stay in their homes. And what these nurses do is they call in to these patients in their home setting and ensure that they've got all the correct community programs. They call about once every 2 or 3 months. And they just do a check-in and also help support them if there's anything else that we can do from Interior Health or community programs to keep them in their home settings. So this is a new program. It again has been very well received. One thing that some of you or some of your family members may have used is our now Regional Cardiac Services Program in Kelowna. We are very happy that we have this program here in Interior Health now, because it does save many patients in Interior Health from having to go to Victoria or Vancouver and have lengthy hospital stays awaiting that. To date in Kelowna, there have been 1,100 open heart surgeries, which is absolutely incredible. And they continue with a lot of angioplasties, or what's called interventional surgery, there as well. And I will tell you, I'm just going to go back. My own husband, who happens to be here, is one of those patients who had interventional cardiac surgery. And I just found it, having worked at Kelowna myself, just really a wonderful program that can allow us to not travel so incredibly far all the way to Vancouver or Victoria. And they are state-of-the-art, very proud of this Interior Health Regional program. And in fact, the one time in the cardiac cath lab, we live here in Grand Forks, and there was yet another Grand Forks residence in the cath lab suite. So there was 2 people from Grand Forks, and so that's really incredible for our city here. Another really profiled response team that we have is called the HEART team, and these are road transport nurses, so they do not go in the air, but they are interfacility transport nurses and RTs that can move a patient that's critically ill from our emergency department here in Grand Forks, possibly to Kelowna or to Trail, which are our regional centers for higher level of care. We have 4 teams currently in Interior Health, and we use 2 of them here in Grand Forks. The HEART team from Trail, or at times the HEART team from Penticton, come to pick up our patients here in Grand Forks if they need road transport. And as you know, we had an incredible donation from a local family, the Clifton family, of almost $200,000 for our new heliport, which is currently on our hospital grounds. It has been incredible to have this service because we do have air transport from BC Ambulance that can helicopter a critically ill patient often to Kelowna for either cardiac or high or very critical trauma care. Again, it has been a really nice addition to our facility here, and we're very lucky to have it because other hospitals within here, Kootenay boundary, such as Nelson with all their mountainous ranges, cannot have a heliport without about $1 million ticket to have that placed there near their hospital. So we are very, very fortunate to have this heliport donated by the Clifton family, and that's actually just a picture of the ribbon cutting. So what do we do in our acute services? Many of you may have been on our acute floor, our 12 medical inpatient floor, or visited someone there. And we do have a very busy emergency department. In fact, the last fiscal year, we have increased our emergency visits by 5%. And it's more than any other Kootenay boundary hospital. Typically, nowadays, emergency visits go up by 1 or 2%. We have increased by 5%, so we're seeing about 1,200 or 1,300 patients per month. So we are definitely a busy service in our emergency department. And as I want to point out, 2 of our other really important things are the cardiac stress testing that we're able to do here, and also our chemotherapy program, which is very, very busy and runs 3 to 4 days per week. Our community health services are listed here, and I know Carrie did mention a few of them, but certainly the nutrition and our mental health, we're going to speak about that as well. There's many different community care programs that are within our region here. Mental health, as you know, is a concern in all of our communities, and the last council meeting I was at, I wanted to sort of add a little bit more about what mental health and our substance use community programs do, because they do a number of different functions for us and really are supporting those mental health clients that are out in the community on medications, maybe struggling with housing, with other issues within their life. There's the clubhouse, which is very active. There's senior mental health services and also group therapy sessions. We also use our telehealth at the hospital for liaison with psychiatrists, and Trail and Nelson psychiatrists do come to Grand Forks to our community offices here and to the hospital to see mental health clients. So we are very fortunate to have those services here. Another really important program, because one of the chronic diseases that touches many of us, especially as we get older, is diabetes. And I am particularly proud of this program, which is a community program, but in our Boundary Hospital. And we have excellent dietitian that's specific to diabetes, as well as a diabetic nurse educator. So here is that nutrition piece, because those individuals with diabetes certainly need to know about their nutrition, and we do have those resources. It's very easy to get a referral, and they do have group sessions as well to provide information about nutrition and also diabetic care. And one new addition since this January is now currently within the Boundary area, we do have a nurse practitioner, and she is located in an office in Rock Creek. She is available to those individuals in that area or those that would want to travel to see a nurse practitioner. And these are specially higher trained, university trained nurses. And Celia Evanson is our nurse practitioner. Actually had a meeting with her last week, Wednesday. She comes with a lot of experience. She has just moved here from up north and worked in an emergency setting and in primary care in a very busy Aboriginal community up there and has tons of experience. So I think we are extremely lucky to have Celia join us. She actually did work during her nurse practitioner training in Grand Forks Emergency with our physicians. So our Grand Forks physicians know her and are all very happy that she is our nurse practitioner here for our boundary area. And one of our key partnerships really is the community here in Grand Forks, our auxiliary volunteers, and also Christina Lake. And I just wanted to highlight, because we did mention the cardiac program in Kelowna. About a year and a half ago, the single largest donation ever from the auxiliary to our hospital was for cardiac monitoring. So we have the state-of-the-art cardiac monitors that can monitor heart rhythms while you're in the trauma bay or at the bedside in real time, that can be seen by a cardiologist in Kelowna in the moment. So it is a really excellent heart monitoring system that we can share with those cardiologists that will make the determination if you need to come to Kelowna or not. And additionally, we did also have $42,000 subsequent to that donation for a new cardiac stress test machine from the Grand Forks Auxiliary. So often you have a cardiac stress test before you go to Kelowna to determine how significant your heart disease is. So that's up and running. And so we really do have some excellent equipment at our small rural hospital that we can provide to our community here. And I thank you for your attention and time, and I'll take any questions at this point.
Councillor Hammond.
Thank you for your presentation. I think we have an amazing health facility here. I moved here from Vancouver, and I know that to see a specialist here or to get service here, you're in much quicker. And the services that we offer for a town this size, I think we're very fortunate. One thing, we as a city are trying to attract young families into our community. And so the only thing that I would see that we, from my perspective, that we were short of is a maternity ward. And I know we had one when I first moved here 10 years ago. The chemo unit is now taken over what used to be the maternity ward. It's hard to attract young families or keep young people in town when we don't have facilities for them to have their families here. Is there any plans for the future? It's like the chicken and the egg. We need the population in order for you to justify the expense of having it. But without having it, we can't draw those young families in.
Right. No, I see your point, but having been the director in Nelson that has the obstetrical program as well as Trail, it is difficult for those families to move here knowing that you don't have an obstetrician here. But it isn't really about having the programming here. You also need to have the physicians, the trained nurses, and keep that competence. So with a population this small, the number of deliveries per year would be limited. And that's where the skill and the expertise of the limited number of physicians here, as well as nurses, cannot be kept up to a standard that's high enough to develop. You know, really, there's a lot of things that can go wrong with a normal birth.
Right.
And then the additional piece of it really is that you need that pediatrician piece with the obstetrical service. So again, it's very difficult to support in a small community such as this, and it isn't just here that that doesn't have that service. I think the geography here has some challenges because, of course, I've lived in Fraser Health, and that area, I mean, hospitals are about 20 to 25 minutes away. It's not quite as big a jump to go to a service there. But unfortunately, here in Interior Health, we do have a lot of geography that works against us.
Councillor Krog.
Yeah, similar to what Councillor Hammond was talking about, so that part's been answered. And I guess just a comment, because I'm not 100% sure that everybody understands who and what the hospital auxiliary is and how they raise their funds. And these were some recent donations or newer donations, but they've been doing it for years. And
Absolutely.
it's mainly funded through the thrift store, which is downtown. And any donations to that thrift store and bringing in funds to help buy more equipment for the whole community. And I can't say enough about what they do, and that's why I support them as well and take everything that I think is still usable
Yes.
to that thrift store across from Clyde's.
Councillor Ross?
I didn't know if you wanted to comment on
I just wanted to comment, absolutely, and thank you for emphasizing that. They are truly our partners, because as the Ministry of Health is working with increasing healthcare budgets, what we find is our capital funding budget continues to shrink. So those items that need replacement, we're having to prioritize an extensive list, and sometimes your item that you think is most important might be second on the list and not first. So without our partners and all the work that they do with the thrift shop and us as community, bringing our items there for sale, I mean, truly, I can walk around the hospital and point out each item that they have actually purchased and which ones Interior Health have. And they are superseding really what our health authority is able to do. Their partnership here is integral to our hospital, absolutely, and residential, because they support residential as well.
Councillor Ross?
Thank you. Yeah, just thank you very much for your presentation. Just referring back to one of the graphs that you showed, you had on your PowerPoint, and looking at the high level of anxiety and depression that exists in Grand Forks, which seemed higher than the rest of BC, correct? Right. And I was just wondering if you could elaborate a little bit more on what sort of mental health, anxiety support do we have in Grand Forks when it indicates that we seem to have a higher need in this area?
Right. So I guess I'll just sort of start with clinical depression and or anxiety doesn't necessarily mean that you have to be seen by a mental health practitioner. Right? So that's important to separate out. And again, as I mentioned, if you have a chronic illness such as chronic pain, or maybe you are on oxygen all the time and you struggle to breathe with COPD, often depression is almost another condition that the physician on their discharge diagnosis from hospital emergency will add that. So they may have COPD and depression because they're living with something that's very chronic and seems like it's never going to go away. So again, for clinical depression that needs a psychiatrist, certainly suicidal patients will see a psychiatrist. And we do have the psychiatrists that do come here from Nelson and Trail to our community services. GPs here and elsewhere can refer them to see a psychiatrist, and then they'll be handled in our community offices. And as well with some of our seniors that have an overriding mental health issue from maybe when they were 40, they had a mental health issue that has continued. Dr. McGee and others will come to our hospital and residential care to assess them and determine if any of their medications need to be altered. Because our GPs are very good at ordering these or continuing medication, but they will either telehealth to or do a telephone call to our psychiatrist for further advice.
Okay, and then how do you deal with people with severe addictions?
Addictions, we do have mental health and substance use. So there are programs that are provided. The Clubhouse is one of them. We do have mental health workers that are outreach workers that do liaise with these clients. And they are, again, this is the benefit of a small community, is very quickly people that move here because of the weather or the affordability get linked in very quickly to our mental health services. So it isn't very often that we will have a person come as a patient to emerge that has possibly what we believe is a mental health issue that isn't already linked into our mental health services here. And if we do, we refer them to our mental health partners.
So the Clubhouse has trained.
Yes. Trained nurses and mental health workers,
Okay.
Social workers as well, that can help them with some of those other issues that they have.
Councilor Rasheed.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Out of curiosity, and thank you for your presentation, and further to what Councilor Hammond was saying, is there a number, like a threshold of births that need to happen in Grand Forks before that service goes back? Because I'm one of those parents that had to travel to Penticton
Right.
to.
Not that I'm aware of, if there's a number, it usually is population-based. And again, thinking about Nelson, because I know it better than Trail, is, I mean, you're looking at 10,000, at least in that city, but the catchment area with all of those small towns is really almost 18,000.
Okay.
So we're looking at about 18,000 in Nelson and our 4 or 5, and, you know, our catchment area being out to the west.
Okay.
Do I have any
That
other
answer your
questions?
Yeah, absolutely does. Yeah.
Do we have any other questions? Okay, may I have a motion to receive the presentation? Councilor Ross, Councilor Rasheed, all in favor? So carried.
Great,
Thank you, Ms. Crane.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry I can't stay up to get back to work, so.
Our next presentation is from the RDKB, Mr. John McLean. Give us an overview and information on the services and programs.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. McLean.
All right.
Very good, thank you.
Excellent.
So, Mr. Mayor, if I could just provide a little bit of an introduction. Council, we invited Mr. McLean to ask, just give us a little bit of an overview of some of the services that the regional district provides, and then answer any questions that the community might have in relation to the services that we offer. So, Mr. McLean offered to come here today and answer any questions for council.
So thank you very much, Mayor and Council, for allowing me to take a few moments of your time to talk about the regional district boundary and the things that we do. The handouts I've given you are the finalized budget numbers for 2015 and the services that Grand Forks participates in through the services offered by the regional district. So just to give some basic background on the regional district, just like your council, your corporation here at the city, we're governed by two main pieces of legislation, which all derive from the Constitution of 1867, which says municipalities are a function of the province. So the two main pieces of legislation we deal with are the Community Charter and Local Government Act, whereas the city of Grand Forks will largely work within the jurisdiction provided by the Community Charter. The regional district is still largely under the Local Government Act. So we're one of 28 other regional districts in the province. As regional districts go, we're actually relatively small, both in terms of size and the number of services that we provide. There's about 31,000 square kilometers in the regional district community boundary. And we have about a population of about 32,000 all told, including the municipalities. So regional districts are primarily a service delivery vehicle. Our main focus in life is to provide services either through the regional district or in partnership with our members, either the electoral areas or the municipalities. We were all created in 1966, and we do have a lobby role. So on behalf of rural issues or on behalf of regional issues that everybody agrees to, the regional board does have a lobby role with the province. When we're looking at our services, we look at a few main things. We use a lot of citizen input. We cannot generally offer a lot of services without either a municipality or the voter saying that we can. We promote the service needs and the interest to the board, and we participate in decision-making processes throughout the process with the directors. So our board is 13 members. 8 are from the municipalities and are appointed from councils like your own. So that's Midway, Greenwood, Grand Forks, Rosslyn, Warfield Trail, Montrose, and Fruitvale. And then 5 electoral areas, West Boundary, Rural Grand Forks, Christina Lake, Lower Columbia, Old Glory, and Area A. So again, we have about 31,000 residents within the regional district, 8,100 square kilometers, and we have about 18,500 homes all told throughout the regional district. That's according to the 2011 census. Earlier, I made a comment about the fact that we're service oriented. All of our services must be operated and established by bylaw. Generally, we must have the approval of the residents that are going to be taxed before we're allowed to do anything. We have referendums, we have petitions, we have alternative approval, and in some cases, councils are allowed to consent to participate in services on behalf of their electorate. When we do a service establishment bylaw, which are the governing bylaws of our services, we have to determine what the purpose of the service is. It has to be defined. Who the participants are, the service boundaries. We have to draw a map. If you're not inside the service, you don't provide the service, you don't pay taxes for the service, and how we're going to share those costs, including a requisition limit. So when council does their budgeting, and I'm going to assume it's been a while since I worked in a municipality, but this is the way it worked back then, you focus on a tax rate, a mill rate, and what that's going to generate in terms of revenues for your services. We don't do that. We focus on a requisition limit. So what we do is we focus on how much we're asking the taxpayers to provide us. 100,000, 200,000, whatever that number is. We don't actually know what the tax rate is until the province sets it, and it's the province that sets the tax rate. So when we operate a service, the other thing that we must remember is it's operated like it's the only service that we have. There's a very good example right here in Grand Forks. The pool and the arena are across the parking lot from each other. They are two separate services. The pool could be having a wonderful year. Lots of people in there swimming. Nothing breaking down. Lots of money. That's rare, but it happens. The arena could be having an absolutely horrible year. Excuse me, I'll get rid of that. Sorry about that. So the arena could be having an absolute crappy year. Everything's breaking down, there's nobody, and their revenues are down. Even though the pool and the arena are the same taxpayers, they are separate services. Not one nickel can travel across that parking lot. It has to stay within the pool service. That is the nature of the services. Each service must be managed like it's the only one we have. We do not transfer funds between services. So when we talk about sharing the cost of the services, there's many different ways that we can do it. The default position is on the basis of assessment. So each participant has an assessment. We take that assessment and whatever the relative share is, that's how much of the cost they pay. We can do parcel taxes. We can do things on the basis of population, or we can do things on the basis of a fixed percentage. Again, the pool and arena are good examples. Can't exactly remember which one is which, but one of the two services has a fixed percentage. Grand Forks pays so much percentage, Area D pays the other. So we have all of these different opportunities for making decisions on how we share costs of our services. So within the regional district, we have services that are region-wide, solid waste, administration. Those are region-wide services. We have sub-regional services. Those are services that include one or more municipalities, one or more electoral areas. Building inspection, emergency planning, recreation, the library, the curling club. Those are all sub-regional services. We have electoral area services. Those are services that only the electoral areas participate in. Planning and development would be the prime example there. Local area services that are just within the local area. So here we have a regional rep service within electoral area D that only area D pays into. And lastly, we have specified areas. The best examples of specified areas are actually down in Christina Lake. We have parcel areas, the fire services area. The fire services for rural Grand Forks is a specified area. Not everybody participates, not everybody pays. So those are the basics of how our services are derived. That's how we provide those services. That's how we go about approving them. So when we look at our 2015 financial planning process, which we have just completed, we have a defined process that we go through every year. We generally start in the fall of the year. We look at service levels. We look at how much it's going to cost to maintain things the way they are. That is the default position. Whenever we look at a service, we start out with the premise that we're going to keep things the way they are before we decide to increase services or cut services, depending on where we want to go. We look at our revenue sources. We determine whether or not we need to borrow any funds. We have a discussion with the participants. So when we talk about the participants, we're talking about the elected official participants. So in this case, Director Krog, Councillor Krog, would play an active role in discussing all of the budgets that Grand Forks participates in every meeting, in every process. We determine our service levels. Again, there's good examples here. The pool is an expensive service. So one way to control costs within the service is to cut service levels. That's one of the easiest ways to manage things. That decision is made by the elected officials. We do public consultation within the rural areas. We go out, we do town hall meetings. We tell the folks what they're going to be looking at in terms of their services and how much we're going to be asking in terms of the budget. We make that same opportunity to councils, and I'm here today to discuss things. And then finally, we have to adopt our financial plan by March 31st of each year. That's mandated by law. The main reason for that is so that we can give you your requisition, so you know how much you're having to pay for our services that you participate in. So when we look at 2015, we're seeing a slight increase in the budget. It's about a $37.5, $38 million budget this year. We've generally been floating around about 30 million for several years now. Generally, for the rural residents, a majority of the tax base is still provincial, school tax, whatever the case may be. Within the municipalities, we don't have all the information, so it's hard to judge. So in this year, you'll see that on the documents I provided, the services that Grand Forks participates in, we're looking at just over, it's 0.17% increase in total requisition to the city of Grand Forks. These numbers are subject to a little bit of change because we get final assessment numbers at the end of March, and they're probably just being plugged in now. But we're probably very, very close. The large increases this year are in the aquatic center and in the arena. And then there's a small increase in the library service as well. So there's no real large increases, no large decreases. The large decrease in administration is due to debt being paid off, and the decision to maintain things the way they are. An interesting fact in the administration service, that's a general government service, general government administration services. That service is largely paid for by the 7 Mile Dam. 7 Mile Dam is a large dam located on the Pond Array, just outside of Fruitvale. And it's owned by BC Hydro. BC Hydro pays grant in lieu. The board made the decision many, many years ago to contribute the grant in lieu to administration services. That way everybody would get the benefit from it. So that service receives about $1.4 million a year from the 7 Mile Dam, which pays for large components, large parts of the administration service. I didn't want to take up too much of your time, but I'm happy to answer any questions you might have about the regional district in general or about the information I provided. And again, I make the offer that if you ever need to have a conversation, you can flow your questions through your CAO or give us a call directly. I'd be happy to answer.
Do you have any questions? Councillor Thompson.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your presentation, John. Why is the increase in the aquatic center so substantial this year? 13,700.
The aquatic center is largely, the costs are largely around personnel. So there's the QB agreement increase in there, which was 2%. And then there's some capital needs that we need to take care of.
Councillor O'Shea.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the presentation, first off. And sitting on the Rec Commission board for the past 6 years, in fact, this Thursday is my last meeting. My 6 years is up. Finally get out there. We're given, when it comes to budget time, 3 different budgets. We're given the arena budget, we're given the aquatic center budget, and the third budget, the programming budget. That budget can flow between the two, can it not?
No.
That's only for the aquatic center?
They're actually all, no, it's actually, the recreation programming service is actually a separate service yet again.
Is it?
It just has components of both the arena and the pool included in it.
Interesting, okay. It was presented to us differently before, as a way to offset costs.
Well,
It should shift things from pool, from the pool budget into the programming budget.
Shifting would be the term that I would have some challenges with.
Okay.
I think it'd be more accurately said that there are components of programming that take place both in the arena and the pool that are best paid through the programming budget rather than through the pool budget.
Okay, and where would that, is that a budget the city also pays into, and which one would that fall under? So I see curling rink, I see aquatic center, arena, but no programming budget.
Is the rec commission?
Is the rec commission budget?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Ross.
Thank you. At the RDKB 101 that we attended at Trail, and you spoke about, I don't think, no, you didn't. We had a presentation on all the different services, and one of them was on fire service. And can you just speak about that again? How we share those services between Grand Forks and the rural Grand Forks.
Sure. 2 years ago, the improvement district, the Grand Forks Rural Fire Improvement District, transferred their service to the regional district as a regional district service. Before that time, the improvement district and the city had a contract that established that the city would be responsible for the administration and general operation of the service, and the Grand Forks Rural Fire Department would contribute costs. Since that time, we've maintained that contract. It's still in existence. The CAO and I have had a conversation that it does require a little bit of renewal, and we're probably taking that on this year. There was a decision made at the time of the transfer that it would be best to take things slowly for the first little while, and everybody agreed to that. The Grand Forks Rural Fire Department, a regional district service, contributes a contracted amount to the city of Grand Forks for the administration and operation of the fire service. And then we also do contribute to capital programs within the city from within the service.
So you back each other, they back each other up?
No, it's operated as one service.
Okay.
We do not have a separate administration. We do not have a rural chief. Chief Harriet operates the whole service.
Councillor Hammond.
I've just noticed that there's a $7,000 increase in solid waste services this year. Is there anything, changes happening?
That is the increases this year. There's no real large increases in programming. What's happening within solid waste is the allocation of post-closure funds. So we are required to have post-closure funds. They have to be handled within a certain accounting standard. And we had to change the way we did things. So we were running a small liability over the next 5 years. The only large difference, and it actually has no impact on Grand Forks because we already have the program, is the expansion of the organics program throughout the service.
Councillor Rasheed.
I was just going to say that we have to, and I think Councillor Krog explained that, we have to plan post-closure and prepare for post-closure, so we have to fund that. So that's part of our responsibility as a community, as a local government, and sharing that responsibility is to plan for 25, 50 years down the road, how we're going to be handling the off-gassing, how we're going to be handling all the other components of the landfill site, because there'll be required testing. They'll have to go out there with piezometers and test the water quality. And if there is any other remediation that'll have to happen, once the site is closed, there'll have to be funds in place. So what they do is they prepare and put these funds together for that. It is a common practice. And once we reach that threshold, then we can look at how we can use the site from a community perspective or other land uses that we can look at in there. But that's way down the road for us.
Councillor Rasheed.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Further to the question regarding the regional fire service, out of curiosity, what within the service, how does the breakdown work in regards to vehicle replacement within the fire department?
So we, the rural service will be responsible for replacing the capital requirements within the rural service still.
Okay.
We will contribute, it was part of the agreement that we contribute to the command vehicle for the deputy chief, and we did contribute capital funds towards the latter.
Okay.
But when it comes to buying a new pumper or a new tanker out in the rural area, it'll be the rural service that will be responsible for that.
Okay, that's perfect.
Mr. Mayor, I was wondering if we could get John to explain a little bit of or John, are you prepared to discuss some of the diversion things that are happening at the landfill to divert things away from going into some of the programs? You mentioned a little bit about the composting site and maybe some of the metal separations, and there's a lot of great things happening there that are great for our region.
So we've had a pretty active diversion program throughout the regional district for many years. One that's actually recognized and we've achieved a couple different awards for. Our diversion rates are rather high as it comes to regional districts and rural areas in particular. So we are over on the east side, we are signatories with MMBC. So they took over our Blue Box program in Greater Trail and electoral areas A and B. Over here, we continue to have a contract until 2017 with a local contractor. So we took the subsidies over here. But the program is working very, very well. The Blue Bag program over here is widely accepted. We always have a conversation every time that we talk about tipping fees or something like that at the landfills. There's always an ongoing discussion regarding folks not liking paying tipping fees. Well, one of the reasons that we have the diversion rates that we do have is because we have tipping fees. If people could just throw away for free, they would choose to do that. In many cases, there are folks out there who would still recycle and things like that, but the tipping fees do contribute. So we're going to expand our organics program. That's going to have large, far-reaching impacts on our services and the taxpayer in general as we expand those programs. Over here, we were talking about the waste stream being about 40% organics. If we can pull that out of the garbage that we have to bury within the landfill, that means that we can extend the life of our landfills a long time, which lowers the amount that we have to put away on an annual basis for post-closure, which does nothing but good things for all of us. It reduces the amount of gas that you're producing, so then maybe you don't have to talk about landfill gas management systems. It also reduces the amount of leachate that you produce when you don't have those organics rotting, and your chances of landfill fires does drop a little bit. So these programs are going to be meaningful in the long term. I can guarantee you that the one thing that none of us ever want to go through is siting another landfill. I've been through it in my career. It is the worst process in the world because you cannot make anybody happy. So anything that we can do that extends the life of our landfills through recycling or through diversions is very much money well spent.
Councillor Wurshagen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Further to that, what is the lifespan? What's left on our landfill here, roughly?
75 years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're not talking imminently
Okay.
here.
Councillor Thompson.
Thank you. John, what is the acceptance in the city of the composting is there an acceptance or are there?
Well, I believe so. We started as a pilot program, we started in Grand Forks within the city. It was based on the success of that pilot program that we expanded it. There's always going to be a few folks that question the need. But my understanding, and that's largely based on the fact that I'm not getting screamed at on the phone on a regular basis, which just happened, is that it's being widely accepted. These programs, they're not new, they're not even novel anymore. You look at any large community that has an aggressive program, and organic recovery, green bin recovery, whatever the case may be, is the standard now.
I personally, I love the system.
So we're very excited. We're rolling out in Christina Lake right now. Our partners are door knocking and delivering bins as we speak. We're going to have some public education coming up in the next couple months. Probably do some during the summer so we can try and capture some of the summer residents in Christina Lake. As quickly as we can expand this program out, we will do.
Councillor Hammond.
I understand the need for the tipping fees at the dump, but it just amazes me. how people will drive past the dump with a pickup or a trailer and drive miles up into the bush to discard furniture and appliances. And it disgusts me. I take pictures wherever I see them, but they don't want to pay the fee to dump them. So at what expense and at whose expense is the reclamation of that land that they're destroying out in the bush?
We report all illegal dumps to the province, to the conservation officers. We have a program where if a community member, a neighbor goes in and cleans up an illegal dump site, we'll waive tipping fees for the material coming in. So we do those kinds of things now. We try to work with the Crown as much as we can.
Are there stiff penalties if a person is caught? I mean, I know people are careful
Yes.
usually to take out any mail or anything that might have their contact information in it, but
There is. But it's provincial. It's not through us.
so enforcement is very tough.
Yes, it is very tough.
It's just disheartening.
Yes, it is. I agree.
Kilometers up into the bush and it's beautiful wilderness and you come across a whole dump site.
Mr. Allen?
Mr. Mayor, just in another regional district that I worked in, they had a bit of a program where all of the payers that were on the system, a small amount was contributed, and there was a point in time where they were able to go into areas and fly out old vehicles because they dumped them over the banks, and nobody could go in and get those, but the regional district had funding, and then the community, depending on the organizing committee, so if you had a pitch-in week or a cleanup week, that was facilitated, and the regional district actually was flying vehicles out of the watershed that were generally rallied over the bank, and it just became this situation where we had to fund it somewhere, but it became an extra cost for the garbage service because everybody had to pay for those things. So those are things that can be considered, but when people do those illegal dumps, there is a cost, and everybody else has to pay for it.
Do I have any other questions from the gallery? May I have a motion to receive the presentation from Mr. John McLean, Councillor Ross, Councillor Crog? All in favor? So carried.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. McLean. We'd now like to invite Mr. Jacob Noseworthy to give a presentation on behalf of the BC Youth Parliament. Good morning, Mr. McLean.
Good morning, Your Worship. Good morning, councillors. Thank you for inviting me to speak on behalf of the British Columbia Youth Parliament. To start, I'd just like to give you a little bit of a history of the organization. It was begun in 1924. It was the brainchild of a young man by the name of Taylor Staton. He was part of the YMCA and was a recruit to the Boer War. He later went on to do a tour across Canada for the YMCA, and in Vancouver, he brought up the idea of a youth parliament. It was created originally by the Protestant and Lutheran churches, and it held its first session in 1924. The first premier of, at the time known as the Older Boys Parliament, was Walter Stewart Owen. He later went on to become the 22nd Lieutenant Governor of British Columbia. Later on in 1974, after the Dave Barrett government was elected provincially, there was pressure on the organization to allow girls in, or they would lose access to the legislative chambers. So fortunately, upon that, it shifted into the British Columbia Youth Parliament and started allowing girls and people from all faiths to attend. There has been a lot of difficult times through the history of the Youth Parliament. Since it was founded in 1924, it was just getting started during the Great Depression and unfortunately shut down during World War II. So it has had some difficulties due to the times, but it has managed to persevere. In the 40s, they had quite a few financial difficulties and difficulties with the organization of the parliament. But fortunately, through the involvement of churches and donations from other organizations, they were able to keep the parliament going. Eventually, from 1939 to 1945, it was shut down due to the war. and it took some effort to get it started back up afterwards because of the delay, and there was a parliamentary convention held in the Lower Mainland. And since then, the British Columbia Youth Parliament has gone on uninterrupted. Another notable alumni is Linda Reid, who's currently the Speaker of the British Columbia Legislative Assembly and served as a cabinet minister during her time at BCYP. I also wanted to mention a few of the other components that the British Columbia Youth Parliament puts forth. We have regional youth parliaments, which occur all across the province. We have 6 located in 6 different geographic areas. I am helping this year to organize the Southern Interior Youth Parliament in Kelowna, and I hope for that to be a success. There was also a camp that for underprivileged children that went on in the past in the early 2000s and late 1990s, but that was unfortunately shut down as we did not have enough funding. But we are attempting to continue on with it and formed a new project called Project Phoenix, as it was literally brought up from the ashes, much like a phoenix. And it was put into legislation last year, and we're hoping to have Project Phoenix events occurring in the interior this year, possibly even one in Grand Forks. We are also not a mock parliament, but a model parliament. All the legislation we pass is binding, and it controls our activities throughout the year. We have our own fundraising events. We also do service projects in the community in groups, and our motto is youth serving youth, so we do whatever we can to help out other young people in our communities. My experience with the British Columbia Youth Parliament has been life-changing. I've met absolutely amazing people there, and it's an organization that I support incredibly. It has really further instilled a passion in politics into me, and it is something I'd like to go into as a future career. We also have another motto of the British Columbia Youth Parliament that I'd like to share with you that I think is very important. It is say what you mean what you say, and do what you said you would do. I believe that's important because I said I'd do whatever I could to help further the youth parliament movement, and through my initiatives such as coming here, I've also been assisting with the management committee to plan youth parliaments. I am helping to plan the Project Phoenix events, as well as my chief returning officer duties at the Southern Interior Youth Parliament. I would like to further grow the youth parliament movement and make it into the great thing that it really was in the past, but unfortunately isn't at that same level today. But I believe that with some help, we can get there again. Thank you.
Do you have any questions? Councillor Thompson.
That was an awesome presentation, Jacob. Thank you very much. You are trying to raise funds, as I understand it, for the so that the youth parliament can continue. Is that correct?
That is correct. As you served on the Phoenix Foundation board last year, I greatly appreciated the donation from the Phoenix Foundation that I received last year. That was to allow me to recoup some of the costs of attending and to be able to attend the Southern Interior Youth Parliament as well as go back this year. So because of that very kind donation, I have been able to become more involved in the organization. But now I would really like to help the organization out in any way possible and to see what funds I can raise, because I believe it's incredibly important in the development of youth in this province. A lot of alumni have went on to go into fields such as politics or law, and I believe that if it wasn't for the youth parliament, that we wouldn't have those people going on into those fields, because it really helps to develop the sense of not only community, but of importance of the political system in our province and our country.
Councillor Ross.
Thank you so much, Jacob, for your leadership and example that you are to all of us here. Thank you. Just a couple of questions. I like that, the older boys parliament, heaven forbid. That and sometimes I think we see it today in some levels of government, that we've moved away from that. I'm just, a couple of questions. What influence do you think that there could possibly be if there was representation from youth parliament in the various standing committees, both in the provincial and the national level? Like, do you see that something that could have an influence, or to keep it a little bit more well-behaved?
I truly believe that having representatives from youth parliaments would definitely help the standing committees. I know that from some of the youth wings of the political parties in British Columbia, they do send delegates to go to certain standing committees, but especially because the British Columbia Youth Parliament is nonpartisan, we have a unique outlook that other youth organizations don't have, and I believe that would be incredibly beneficial.
Is there any interest of becoming a parliamentary page, or does your involvement with youth parliament give you a bit of a leg up in order to have that experience of being a parliamentary page?
I'm unsure if that gives you a leg up, but personally that is something I'm very interested in looking into for the future. I'm hoping to go to school in Victoria at some point at the University of Victoria. So being a page in the legislature is something I'm very interested in, but I'm not sure if the youth parliament would give you a leg up. I know it would be something that they consider as perk when you're applying, but
Right.
there's no direct correlation.
Okay, and just one more question, if you don't mind. Charitable status. Do you have charitable status? So if there was, folks from the community that are here today or watching on Grand Forks Television or know about, your desire to support parliamentary youth, is there charitable status?
There is a charitable status. We are also a nonprofit organization, and we issue tax receipts for anybody wishing to make a donation. So they can claim that on their income tax and get some of their money back that they donated.
Okay, do you have any personal needs in order for you to continue to pursue your goals and your involvement?
Right now, thanks to the generous donation of the Phoenix Foundation last year, I am able to continue going and keep myself financially stable with costs and food and travel, that type of stuff. But right now, my main goal is to promote the organization to as many people as possible and to get it any help in any way possible.
Thanks, Jake.
Thank you.
Councillor Thompson.
Yes, Jacob, the youth parliament and those involved in it, do they work within their own communities to promote young people, to engage young people to become involved in local politics by getting out and voting, or what kinds of things does the youth parliament do to promote that kind of service?
As of right now, there is no real promotion to be involved in politics or go out and vote. One of the requirements to return year after year is to have 20 hours of community service. I'm currently fulfilling that on the Columbia Basin Alliance for Literacy Board, and the other people throughout the province are fulfilling theirs in different ways. Some people help out at soup kitchens, but one, such as our motto of youth serving youth, we really aim to help out youth in any way possible, such as through the Project Phoenix that we created, which will be a day camp for youth to come and play games, crafts, that type of stuff. And that would be oriented towards youth who couldn't usually go to, say, a camp like Pines Bible Camp because of the cost. But as of right now, there isn't any political part in the community.
So you don't go out and speak to the high school students or to other youth to encourage them to become more engaged in any level of politics, be it local, provincial, or federal.
A lot of the members are active members in political parties and do speak to youth in that way. But as an organization, currently, we don't have that. But that is something I personally would be interested in seeing.
Do I have any other questions? Councillor Crowe? Hello, Jacob. Just a comment. I know you're an avid viewer and you watched intently when we were discussing grant and aid or lack of grant and aid. And I've always been one who doesn't believe really in grant and aid. Like, I support what you are doing. And I'm not saying that the organization isn't worth funding. It's just that I didn't have the belief that I should be asking the taxpayers to fund it. I did say at that meeting that I would fund towards it, and I did write out a check, but as a true politician, it's sitting on the dining room table. So we will have to get together to get you that. The other thing too is if you do manage to pull together a Phoenix event in our area, I would like you to call me because I can help with that. I know a caterer. So I would definitely be willing to donate. So I'm willing to donate on behalf of me for what you're doing. And it's pretty brave, I believe, to for a person to say that they're interested in politics or want to become involved in politics when the majority of the world thinks we're evil weasels. So maybe you can actually bring a good name to politics when people say that. So yes, I do have that check, and I will get that to you, and you can use it for funding this coming event. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Brown.
Councillor Hammond?
Jacob, thank you for that amazing presentation, and I have to commend you for your spirit and your perseverance with this. Do you have a fund, a donation set up where people can contribute? Because Neil's correct in that the city itself doesn't have grant and aid, but I'm more than willing to contribute. And I'm sure a lot of the civic-minded people that are in the gallery and watching at home, Facebook, you've had the publicity, you're getting the publicity. I think you'll have an amazing donation fund. So is there someplace that?
We do have our bank account, which is the Youth Parliament of British Columbia Alumni Society. And usually for donations, it just goes to the member who's collecting it. And then once a month, I bundle all the checks and donations up and send them to our Minister of Finance.
Yep.
So it usually just goes through the member. And then it also, as a sort of an added perk, there's, they find out who raised the most money, and then there's a small award at the end of the year, just a little plaque. So
Maybe, because you're active on Facebook, maybe you could get your contact information out there and set a target of what you're looking for and make it a challenge. I'm sure you're gonna have a lot of community support, publicity, and I think you're just an incredible young man to have that, and very encouraging for other young people. It's good to see.
thank
Put
you
the
very
name of
much.
the organization on that, because I'll never remember that by the time I get home.
Okay.
To make, who I make the check out to.
Yes, or stop by and see us during the break.
Okay.
Hang around during the break.
Councillor Ross?
I was gonna ask who people can make the check out to. So Youth Parliament of BC,
Alumni Society.
Alumni Society, okay.
Councillor Crog.
I made the check out to you
Okay,
because I wasn't sure if, and it's up to you to decide if you need it to cover expenses and or if it's going straight to the organization. And that's okay, I can just leave it that way, or?
I have had some checks addressed directly to me, and what I've done with them is I've just cashed them and then went and wrote a check out to the Youth Parliament of BC Alumni Society from there. So all the funds I am raising right now are going to the organization.
That's easier, sorry. Do you want, I can rewrite it or I can leave it in your name? What's easier for you?
You can just leave it in my name and I'll
Okay.
be able to pass it on.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Are there any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Noseworthy. May I have a motion to receive the presentation? All in favor? So carried. Thank you again.
Thank you very much.
May I have a motion to call a 10-minute recess? Councillor Ross, Councillor Hammond, all in favor? Recess for 10 minutes. Now our presentations from staff. The Manager of Development and Engineering Services in regards to the City of Grand Forks gravel pit adjacent to the RDKB landfill. Recommend that council request that staff proceed with compiling a detailed report regarding the City of Grand Forks gravel pit and bring back to council for decision to proceed